Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and I'm going to be reading today a story I wrote this week called The New Kid. First of all, thank you to Beth, who sent me a message this last week saying that she liked the last episode and was looking forward to seeing more of the new fiction content. So thank you, Beth. Appreciate it. And if you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. And of course, I'm going to be recording this sort of semi-live. I'm trying to figure out basically, can I do it as a true live event? But then I am having a hard time actually sharing sharing the actual document on Facebook's, or not Facebook's, but rather YouTube's Hangouts. They default towards webcams, and there doesn't seem to be a good way to get the actual document shown. So anyway, so you can either watch the episodes or listen along on YouTube, or you can listen to us as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and some other places, and you can also listen to it directly on CryptoBiography.com. So I'm going to read the new episode, which is half of a longer story, and like I say, it's The New Kid. In 4th grade, Amelia Stewart's class at Polk Elementary had a new student. "This is Daniel Burton," their teacher, Miss Wickham, informed them. "He's new to town. He lived over near the National Forest land. Please say hello, Daniel." "Hello," Daniel said it, Amelia thought, rather flat. She couldn't tell if he was bored or if he was trying to keep nerves under control. "Now everyone will stand up, give Daniel their name, and say something about you. No one expects Daniel to remember all your names right away, but we're being polite and introducing ourselves." Inwardly, Amelia groaned. No one dared groan aloud. Miss Wickham had strong control over the class, but Amelia suspected that others felt the same way as she did. No one likes being put on the spot like that. She figured out what she was going to say and then used the time waiting for her turn to introduce herself to inspect the new student. Daniel was tall for their class and quite skinny. His height made Amelia wonder if Daniel had been left behind a grade. His long mouse-brown hair had long bangs that threatened to cover his eyes with the slightest breeze. His clothes looked well worn, and she noticed that his jeans were at least an inch too short for him. If this is what he wears at the first day to a new school, she wondered, is this his best clothes? Was he poor, or did he just not care? Near the end, she stood up. "I'm Amelia Stewart," she said. "I love animals, especially my cat Runcible, I call him Runcie, and my dog Puddles, who got his name as a puppy when he took a long time to get house-trained. Dad wanted to name him Bowser, but Puddles stuck." The class giggled a bit. "I'd only meant to mention my love of animals," she thought as she sat down. "Why do I always put in more than I have to? No one else said more than a few words." Daniel didn't say anything about himself. Miss Wickham apparently thought being introduced as the new kid was enough pressure, and he took a seat at the back of the class. Amelia, who, along with her friends, was a sort of front-of-the-room sitter, didn't think much about Daniel again until recess. Most of the kids went to the jungle gym and the swings. She and her friends went to chat in the shade of the one big tree in the yard. She saw Daniel along the wall and pointed with her chin towards him. "What do you think of the new kid?" she asked. "Not much," said McKenna. She was pretty and had been a tow-headed blonde girl until recently. Her hair was starting to fade to what her mom told her would be a lovely medium brown in a few years. "Pretty quiet, cheap clothes." Amelia nodded. "Trace?" Tracy, the best student of the three of them, sized him up. "I don't know enough yet to say," she said. "Fair enough," Amelia said. "Let's fix that." "What?" asked Tracy. But Amelia was already setting out across the sunny playground towards him. Daniel was sitting cross-legged and looking at something in his hands. "Hello, Daniel. I'm Amelia," she said. She'd intended to ask him to come over to Tracy and McKenna, but he was still looking at his hands. "What you have there?" "Beetle," Daniel said. He looked up at her. His eyes, she noticed, were a piercing gray blue. Though the beetle was not feet up, it wasn't moving. It was big and black with a sheen that, even in the shade of the building, was iridescent, mixing the black with sapphire blue. "Pretty," she said. "Is it dead?" Daniel looked down at the beetle a long time. "I think it's just scared," he said. "Because it's being held by a human?" she asked. Daniel said nothing, but shook his head slightly. He kept looking at the beetle, and then, after a few seconds, Amelia saw it move. "Oh, looks like it's alive after all," she said. "Little guy's not scared anymore," he said. He looked up at her. There's a drop of red on his upper lip. "Oh, I think you got a nosebleed there, Daniel," she said. He seemed unperturbed. "Gotta take care of this little guy first," he said. "Nosebleeds happen all the time. Dry weather." It was a sunny day, Amelia thought. She watched as Daniel carefully uncurled himself from the pavement, holding the beetle out the whole time. Then he walked towards the back fence of the playground. On the other side was an open field. "He should be able to survive out this way," he called out, as Amelia trailed behind him. They got to the fence, and Daniel held out his hands. "Go on," he said, with a slight jerk of his hands. The beetle flew off with a whirring noise. It landed in the grass well beyond the fence and was gone. "Nice thing to do," Amelia said. "How's your nose?" He turned around, and the bleeding was quite severe now. "Oh, gosh, let's get you to the nurse," Amelia said. After she dropped him off with the nurse, the bell rang for recess to be over. Amelia went back to the room and let Miss Wickham know that Daniel had a bloody nose. "How'd he get that?" she asked. "Just happened," Amelia replied. "Thanks, Amelia. Please take your seat." Daniel came in quietly, nose apparently fine now, about 20 minutes later. He quietly went to his seat at the back and didn't say anything for the rest of the day. When the final bell rang, Amelia looked back and saw that Daniel was getting out of his seat, not leaving for the door, but instead going to the class hamster's cage. She went over to him. "Nose okay now?" "Yes, fine," Daniel replied. "What's with the hamster?" "Class hamster," Amelia said. "We got him, or rather, Miss Wickham brought him in first week. We check on him every morning, and then someone gets to take him home in his carry cage over the weekend to watch. His name's Aristotle." Daniel looked at Aristotle, who was snuffling around his cage. "Does he look scared?" Amelia asked. Daniel took a long time to answer. "No," he said. "He seems happy." "I think so, too. You don't have a bus to catch, do you?" "No, I'm walking." "Oh, you live close? I can walk, too. I'm less than 2 blocks away. My parents let me." "Which way?" Daniel asked. "South," she said and pointed. "Past the playground." "I'm that way, too, but a few blocks more." "Really? There's probably a bus." "No, I'm fine, thanks." "Okay, let's walk." Amelia pulled her backpack over her shoulders and headed out. Daniel took one last look at Aristotle, then followed her. When they had left the playground area, Amelia said, "Your parents must be pretty lenient if you can walk a lot of blocks unsupervised." "They're not my parents," Daniel said. "They're foster parents, Bill and Wendy." "Oh," Amelia said, not sure how to take this information. "Are they nice?" "Nice enough." "Good." They fell into silence. Soon they got to her house. Amelia was debating whether to invite him in for a drink or something, but Daniel was already giving her a quick wave. "Bye," he said. "Bye," she replied. "See you at school." He waved over his shoulder and kept going up the sidewalk. During recess, Daniel, Amelia noticed, tended to walk around the outside of the playground, usually with his head down. She would sometimes wave him over to talk or play tag with her friends, and sometimes he would come over, but sometimes he seemed to just want to be alone, so she let him. One day, only a couple of weeks after joining the class, Daniel had stooped down in the far corner of the playground and was looking at something. He even reached down to it. Amelia wasn't the only one who'd noticed. Some boys from the next higher grade had also seen him and were headed his way. Without thinking, Amelia headed over. "He's got a mouse," one of the older boys said. "What are you poking a mouse for, huh? That's some serial killer shit." He pushed Daniel in the shoulder so he fell down. Some other kids, sensing a fight, were following Amelia as she came up. She saw that there was a mouse right near Daniel's feet. It was either injured or scared because it was moving some but not running quickly away, as it surely would have if it could have. "Leave it," Daniel said. "We don't want any filthy mice around here," another boy said. He took a big step and swept his foot like it was a football at kickoff. He struck the mouse, which went flying well beyond the fence. It wriggled in the air, but awkwardly. Something important had broken. The boys cheered the kick. Daniel looked out where the mouse had landed. Some of the boys pushed him down, chanting, "Serial killer!" But he didn't fight back, just kept looking at the mouse. Towards the mouse. Eventually, they got bored and walked away, laughing. Amelia stooped down next to Daniel. "You okay?" "I'm fine," he said. "But he's scared. The mouse," he said, finally looking up at her. "He's scared." "Yeah," she said. "I'm sure he is. He's probably going to die." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "He's dead," Daniel said at last. "Probably," Amelia said. Come on, let's head back to class. Recess has got to be nearly over. Amelia saw when Daniel went to take a seat that his shoulder was heavily bruised. Must have been from the pushing, she thought. Bullies. The other kids from their class who had watched had apparently spread the word. By the end of the day, Daniel's unofficial nickname was Serial Killer. Though Amelia knew it hadn't been earned, her friends did everything they could to stop her from befriending Daniel. He's a creepy loner, McKenna said. Tracy agreed. That's all based on something from a bunch of bullies. It is even real, Amelia said. Whatever. Let's skip rope, Tracy said. And that's the end of part 1. So part 2 will be next week. I'll be putting it out about the same time. I'm still working on figuring out exactly when the best time to put these out is. But I usually put out the old version of the podcast before noon. But with me sort of doing this semi-live with the visual recording and so on, I'm, debating whether I should be doing it a little bit later in the day. So, but yeah, we'll definitely be doing it on Sunday, probably between noon and 2. And if I can figure out a way to do it as a live show, I think that might be a little bit more fun. But until then, I will do it as a recording so that I can actually show, both my webcam and the actual pages that I'm reading as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. Part 2 will be next week. And thanks for listening. Words and music, copyright 2018, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved.